Welcome, intrepid explorers, to this cinematic explainer on the wild and wonderful world of geography. I'm your guide, and today we are embarking on a totally crucial journey. We're going to conquer the universal language of map conventions and navigate the sometimes tricky mathematics of map scales. Just imagine you're deep in the wilderness, relying entirely on a piece of paper to find your way home. That piece of paper is a literal masterpiece of human ingenuity, but only if you actually know how to read it. By the end of our expedition today, you'll be reading maps like a seasoned tracker reads footprints in the mud. So let's get right into it.
Here is our expedition itinerary for today. First up, map conventions and symbols, and second, map scales and distances.
All right, Section 1, Map Conventions and Symbols. Okay, let's dive right into this with question 15 from your exam prep. What exactly are map conventions? Well, pause for a moment and just think about it. If someone in Japan draws a map and someone in South Africa reads it, they absolutely need to understand each other, right? So the crucial point here is that map conventions are the standard rules and symbols used globally. It's basically a universal agreement so that anyone, anywhere, can easily read any map without needing a translator. Moving deeper into the jungle, we hit question 16. Name the 10 most important map conventions. Now, this is a massive exam essential, guys. Before we reveal the ultimate explorer's checklist, try to count them on your fingers. How many can you actually remember? Let's unpack these 10 essential components. We've got the title, telling us what we're actually looking at, the compass rose or north arrow, showing us direction, the key or legend, the scale and symbols. Then we have the grid system, borders, labels, the coordinates of latitude and longitude, and finally, color conventions. Honestly, if a map is missing these, it's like a survival kit missing its matches. Let's tackle questions 17 and 18 together. What is the function of a map's key, and what are two common examples of symbols? If you know it, shout it out. The key brilliantly explains what all those little symbols, lines, and colors actually mean. And for symbols, map makers use totally universal signs. See a bright red cross? Boom, that's a hospital, a place of healing. A little airplane icon? That marks an airport. These symbols save a ton of space and communicate instantly. Next up is question 19. What features on a map are shown by borders and labels? We see these on almost every single map we look at, but what exact geographical features do they highlight? Let's see how these really build our understanding of map reading. So borders act as invisible, conceptual lines dividing up our world. They separate countries, provinces, or cities from one another. On the other hand, labels provide the vital text, the actual words printed on the page, that give a specific identity to our cities, towns, and streets. Simply put, borders divide and labels identify. Let's test your natural instincts with question 20. How do map makers universally color code our world? Imagine you're flying way up high over the Earth. How would you naturally match the correct standard color to these features? Water, vegetation, mountains, and urban areas. All right, check your expedition notes against this. The logic is wonderfully simple. Water features like rivers and dams are always blue. Lush vegetation, like your parks and forests, naturally get green. Elevated areas, so mountains, are colored brown, and those bustling, built-up urban areas, they're marked in yellow or gray, representing all that concrete and city lights. Moving right along to Section 2, Map Scales and Distances. Here is question 21. What is a map scale? It sounds highly technical, I know, but think of it like a magic trick. What is this magical ratio that allows us to hold the entire world right in the palm of our hands? Well, a map scale is simply the ratio between the distance on your map and the actual distance on the ground. It perfectly dictates exactly how many times the vast, sprawling, real-world landscape was shrunk down to fit precisely onto your piece of paper. It is literally shrinking reality so you can carry it around in your backpack. So that leads to question 22. Why is a scale important on a map? Well, imagine trying to hike to a campsite without one. Without a scale, we are completely lost in the wild. We wouldn't have a clue if the campsite was a quick 10-minute stroll or a grueling 3-day trek. The scale is your ultimate survival tool. It helped us calculate actual distances and estimate our travel time accurately. Now, pay really close attention to question 23. What is the difference between a large scale and a small scale? This is a classic explorer's trap for your exams because the wording can be super tricky. Do you know the counterintuitive difference between them? Let's take a look. Remember this brilliantly simple contrast. A large scale, like 1 to 10,000, actually shows a really small area, like your local neighborhood, but with a huge amount of detail. It zooms way in. Conversely, a small scale, like 1 to 500,000, zooms all the way out to show a massive area, like an entire country, but with very little detail. So the crucial point is, large scale equals large detail of a small area. Small scale equals small detail of a large area. Got it? Let's move on to question 24. Name the 3 types of map scales. There are 3 specific ways map makers mathematically express this shrinking of reality. Can you name them before we reveal the answer? Here they are. You'll definitely want to memorize these 3 forms for your exam. First, the representative fraction, or RF, which looks just like a ratio. Second, the visual linear or bar scale, which looks like a little ruler printed right on the map. And third, the descriptive verbal or word scale, where the mapmaker literally tells you the scale in a written sentence. This brings us to a really fascinating part of our expedition. Questions 25 and 26. If a scale is 1 to 50,000, what type is it and what does it mean? And here's a very strict rule you need to know. Why must we always say a verbal scale represents a distance rather than equals it? Think carefully about this. 1 to 50,000 is a representative fraction. It means 1 centimeter on the map represents 50,000 centimeters in the real world. And here is exactly why terminology matters. We must always say represents because a tiny, flat paper centimeter cannot physically equal 1,000 real-world meters. It simply stands in for it. Now, prepare for the ultimate mathematical survival test with question 27. How do we calculate a perfectly straight, direct path on a map if the scale is 1 to 50,000? Imagine a bird flying in a perfectly straight line from point A to point B. How do we actually measure that? Here is your survival checklist for direct distance. Step 1. Measure the path between your 2 points with your ruler in centimeters. Let's say it's 4 centimeters. Step 2. Multiply that number by your scale factor. So 4 times 50,000 gives you 200,000 centimeters. Step 3. Convert those massive centimeters into manageable meters or kilometers. Just drop 2 zeros for meters, making it 2,000 meters. Drop 3 more for kilometers, and boom, you get a 2-kilometer journey. Master this, and you will never be lost. But as any true explorer knows, the wild is rarely a perfectly straight line, right? That brings us to our final challenge. Question 28. Explain how you measure an indirect distance, like a winding mountain road or a twisting river, using a piece of string. This is a classic old-school field technique. Step 1. Carefully lay your piece of string exactly along the map's printed curves. Step 2. Take a pen and make a firm mark on the string right where your route ends. Step 3. Pick up the string, pull it completely straight, and lay it directly against your linear bar scale at the bottom of the map. You can instantly read the true ground distance. It's a brilliantly simple yet perfectly accurate survival hack. And just like that, you have successfully conquered the complex wilderness of map skills. From decoding colorful symbols to calculating winding river lengths with just a piece of string, you are entirely prepared for your Grade 6 exam. But much more importantly, you now possess the actual tools to navigate our beautiful world. So, armed with this incredible knowledge, what uncharted geographical territories will your curiosity guide you to next? Keep exploring, keep questioning, and I'll see you on our next explainer.